Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
The air in the funeral home was too still, too rehearsed, like grief had a script, and we were all fumbling our lines. I stood near the back, arms crossed, not because I was trying to be tough, but because if I let them fall to my sides, they'd shake. I wasn't crying. Not because I didn't care, but because I'd already grieved these people years ago, long before they died. You don't cry for ghosts that stopped seeing you long before their hearts stopped beating. You just show up, nod at the priest, endure the platitudes, and wait for the final damn curtain. Mom died first. Stroke. Out of nowhere. She'd been the healthy one, or at least the more functional of the two. Dad followed 6 months later. Alzheimer's. That one was slow, cruel, and dirty. He went out like a candle in the wind, flickering until there was nothing left but silence and the smell of burnt wax. Everyone in town kept saying how tragic it was, how sorry they were, how lucky the kids were to have such loving parents. I nodded, smiled, said thank you. Meanwhile, my jaw clenched so tight I thought my back teeth would crack in half. If they only knew. Growing up, I was the steady one. The kid who stayed in the background, made his own school lunches, and remembered to set out the trash without being told. I started mowing lawns at 11. Ran the books for Dad's HVAC company before I even graduated high school. I'd spend my summers sweating in the garage over invoices and inventory, while Lauren, the golden girl, got to go to art camp or detox, depending on the year. She was always trying. Trying to stay clean, trying to find herself, trying to make something of her life while wrecking everyone else's in the process. But Mom and Dad? They loved her the loud way. The public way. The way that made you feel like an afterthought standing in the room. Every damn holiday was about her, how she was doing better or on the right path. Nobody talked about how I bailed them out on back taxes when I was 24. Or how I refinanced my car to cover the mortgage the year Dad's business tanked. No, that was just expected. I was the responsible one. The dependable son. The human safety net with a fading smile and a ledger full of other people's debt. 10 years ago, they came to me, said they needed help managing things. I didn't hesitate. I drafted the paperwork. Power of attorney. Living trusts. Consolidated accounts. I did everything above board. Clean. Legal. They signed it all with grateful eyes and tired hands. I didn't take a dime. Not then. Not for a long time. I still thought they saw me, still believed there'd be a moment, maybe not now, maybe not this year, but someday, when they'd look at me and say, thank you. We couldn't have done this without you. But that day never came. The funeral dragged on. People got up, told stories. Mostly about Lauren. About how much Mom talked about her art. About how Dad always called her his little miracle. I sat there, nodding, counting the cracks in the ceiling. One for every year I swallowed my pride for their sake. After the service, we gathered at the lawyer's office. Same brown paneling, same coffee that tastes like boiled regrets. I sat next to Lauren. She smelled like lilacs and Chardonnay. Had the nerve to lean over and whisper, don't worry, I'll make sure you get something. I didn't respond. Didn't blink. I just stared ahead at the old man in the gray suit who cleared his throat and pulled out the folder that would split whatever was left of this family right down the middle. It took less than 5 minutes. The will was short, efficient, and clean-cut. Everything, and I mean everything, was going to Lauren. The house, the insurance payout, the business shares, even though she wouldn't know a refrigerant valve from a door handle. Not a damn cent left to me. Not even a letter. Just my name mentioned once, in passing. To our son, Adam, we leave our love and gratitude. Their love and gratitude? That's it? Lauren gasped like she hadn't already known. I didn't flinch. I didn't move. I just let the silence settle over me like fresh dirt on a coffin. And maybe that was the moment I buried them for good, not in the cemetery, not in the prayers or the eulogies, But right there in that office with the fluorescent lights and the air that smelled like legal pads and disappointment. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that I'd already taken everything. Not in secret, not in some sneaky, underhanded way. No. I had done it legally over the span of years with their full consent. I just never told them what those papers really meant. Never reminded them that once I had control, there was no giving it back. They left me zero. So I gave them exactly what they paid for. It started 5 years before they died, and to be completely honest, I never thought it would come to this. Back then, I wasn't angry, I was tired. Tired in the way people get when they've been doing the right thing for too damn long without so much as a thank you or a sideways glance. My mother had just broken her hip slipping on ice outside the back porch, the one I'd told them for months needed repairs. Dad had started calling the remote the telephone and thought the dog's name was Monday. It was clear, even then, that their world was getting smaller by the day, shrinking around them like a noose. They asked for help not with tears or drama, but with that quiet desperation older folks carry when they realize life's been speeding up without them in the driver's seat. They wanted security, order, someone to manage the chaos they had built for decades and could no longer control. So I stepped in. I didn't do it with revenge in mind, or at least not then. I did it the way I'd done everything since I was a kid, methodically, quietly, like breathing. We sat at the lawyer's office in a little room that smelled like carpet glue and old paper. They signed power of attorney over to me, gave me full control of their finances, estate planning, medical decisions, the whole shebang. I remember Mom laughing awkwardly and saying, "You're so good with this stuff, Adam. You were always the organized one." Dad just nodded like he wasn't sure what year it was, and I smiled like a good son. But something cracked open in me that day, not a loud crack, more like the subtle sound of drywall shifting behind a picture frame. I didn't touch a cent at first. I paid their bills, managed their medications, hired help around the house. I even sent Lauren money a few times when she needed to get back on her feet, which happened about every 6 months. She had no idea it was my name on the checks. But then I started noticing how much of what they owned was just sitting there, unprotected, disorganized, vulnerable. If someone else, Lauren, for example, got their hands on it first, it could all disappear into a black hole of poor decisions and impulsive bullshit. That's when I started moving things, not illegally, not under the table, but through legitimate channels. I restructured the small business under a new LLC with myself as managing member. I transferred the deed of the house into a revocable living trust that I controlled. I consolidated their personal savings into the business to protect it from probate, and I had them sign every paper with a pen I handed them personally. It was all there in black and white. All legal. All clean. No tricks, no backdoors, no secret codes. Just smart moves made quietly, like a man rearranging furniture while the house burns down around him. And yes, I benefited. Of course I did. By the time I was 35, I'd moved almost $80,000 into the trust. Or maybe it was $85,000. I was never great at math, which is funny considering I've been balancing my parents' lives like a damn spreadsheet for years. But you know what? It still didn't feel like revenge. Not then. It felt like I was reclaiming something, like I was finally correcting the balance sheet on a lifetime of being the family's unpaid accountant, nurse, therapist, and financial advisor. When you're invisible long enough, you stop asking for things. You just take what's already yours. And that's exactly what I did. The funny part is, they never questioned a thing. Not once. They trusted me like I was still that 11-year-old mowing the lawn without being told, scraping gum off the bottom of Mom's shoes, patching up Dad's invoices after he double-billed the Johnson job in '97. I played the role so well they never saw it coming, and maybe I didn't either, not until the day the wolf showed up and spat in my face. I didn't touch the lake house. Not yet. That one had sentimental strings tied to it, and I wasn't ready to sever those just yet. But everything else? Tied up. Controlled. Quietly mine. Then came Lauren. She showed up 2 weeks after the funeral, Same old perfume, same fake tan, same smug little grin she wore every time she thought the world owed her something. She pulled up in a rented SUV, wearing sunglasses that probably cost more than my last mortgage payment, and had the nerve to walk up to the front door with a bottle of cheap rose tucked under her arm like she was hosting some kind of victory party. She didn't even knock. Just walked right in like the queen returning to her palace. Looked around the living room, wrinkled her nose at the carpet I hadn't had time to replace, and turned to me with that syrupy, condescending tone she always used. Well, I guess I should start figuring out where to put my studio. This lighting's terrible, by the way. I didn't say a word. Not yet. She asked if I'd packed up my stuff already. Said she'd give me a week or two to find a new place, just because we're family. I nearly choked on my coffee. Then I handed her a manila envelope, neatly labeled, notarized. Inside was the deed, transferred into the trust 2 years ago, legally signed and recorded with the county clerk. My name, my trust, my house. She blinked. Read it twice. Said, "This isn't funny, Adam." I said, "No, it isn't." She stared at me like she didn't know who I was anymore. But the truth is, she never really did. She only ever saw the version of me that kept quiet while she burned bridges and expected someone else to build new ones behind her. And now? Now she was standing in my living room, in my house, holding a bottle of wine she didn't deserve, completely unaware that this was just the beginning. The slam of the front door rattled the hallway mirror, and before I could even set down my coffee, Lauren was halfway across the living room, her heels clicking like gunfire across the tile I had installed myself 2 winters ago. She didn't bother with pleasantries or even eye contact. She was on a mission, powered by entitlement and Chardonnay and whatever cocktail of righteous anger she had mixed up in her head on the way over. Her hair was still damp, like she couldn't even be bothered to dry it before barging into what she believed was her kingdom. "I want to see the paperwork," she snapped, not a trace of warmth or subtlety in her voice. Now, I didn't flinch. I'd been expecting this moment since the funeral. Since the reading of the will where she sat smugly like the guest of honor at a party she hadn't paid for, grinning while I stayed stone-faced, letting silence stretch around me like armor. I walked to the kitchen table, opened the drawer, and calmly pulled out the folder with the thick blue band wrapped around it. Everything was inside: photocopies, notarizations, filings, timestamps, the whole damn tree of legal documentation. I slid it across the table like I was dealing cards. "You're standing in my kitchen, sis," I said, slow and deliberate, making sure each word dug into her just enough to draw blood. Her lips curled, her eyes narrowed, and for a moment she just stared at the folder like it was a live snake. She didn't touch it. She didn't need to. She knew what it meant. Knew what it was. "This is bullshit," she hissed. "You manipulated them. You took advantage while they were vulnerable. You're a goddamn thief." I leaned against the counter, crossed my arms, and gave her the kind of look Dad used to give me when I was 12 and forgot to shut the garage. That tired, disappointed, not this shit again kind of stare. "You think I needed to manipulate them?" I asked, voice low, calm, almost bored. "They gave me the keys to the castle because I was the only one who stayed when things got ugly. You were off detoxing in a yoga commune in Arizona while I was driving Dad to his neurologist every other week and making sure Mom didn't fall asleep with the stove on." She threw the folder on the ground, papers spilling like a broken promise across the floor. "I don't give a damn what you did. That house was supposed to be ours." "Yeah?" I stepped forward, closer than she liked. "And where were you when Mom couldn't remember how to use the microwave? Where were you when Dad wandered out into traffic and almost got flattened by a delivery truck? You don't get to show up now and start calling dibs." "I was trying to get better," she said, a little less sure now, a little more shaken. "I had problems. They understood that." "They didn't understand shit," I snapped. "They enabled you. They coddled you. They let you burn down every damn bridge you ever built and then handed you a new box of matches every time. They didn't love you more, Lauren. They just never expected you to show up sober. That landed like a punch. I saw it hit her in the face, in the shoulders, in the stomach. She took a step back, blinked, like she'd been slapped. And for a second, just one flicker of a second, I almost regretted it. But I didn't. She looked around the room, eyes glassy, hands shaking just slightly. Maybe it was rage, or maybe it was the realization that for once, her name wasn't on the title. Maybe she thought she could scream loud enough to reverse a deed. Maybe she thought the same old tricks would work. They left it all to me, she muttered, quieter now. They wanted me to have it. I gave her a look that could slice through granite. And I knew that months ago. That made her flinch. She stared at me, confused, suspicious, like the floor was shifting under her heels. What? I shrugged, letting the words drip out like poison. The lawyer emailed me the draft by accident. PDF came through while I was paying Mom's insurance. Funny, right? I had it open while I was scheduling her oxygen delivery. She shook her head like she could shake away the implication, but it was already in the air, thick and undeniable. So you knew. You knew they were giving it all to me. Yup. And you still, she pointed to the scattered papers, you still went behind their backs? I smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. It was the kind of smile you give when the curtains pulled back and the truth's uglier than anyone expected. You're not the only one who knows how to manipulate people, Lauren. She didn't say another word. Just picked up her purse, left the wine on the counter, and stormed out the way she came, her perfume hanging in the air like a curse. I stood there, listening to her tires scream out of the driveway, and wondered how long it would take before the next storm rolled in. It didn't take long. 2 days later, a certified envelope showed up in the mailbox. Her name on the return address. Her lawyer's seal stamped across the back in thick black ink. I didn't even open it right away. I already knew what it said. There's a unique kind of silence that comes right after you're served legal papers by someone you used to share a sandbox with. It's not the silence of shock or fear, no, it's heavier than that. It's the silence of inevitability, like the sky right before a tornado touches down. I stood there with the envelope in my hand, the paper still warm from the mailman's grip, and I knew exactly what it was without having to read a single line. Lauren had lawyered up, and now it was time to pay the piper, or at least, that's what she thought. It didn't take long for her lawyer to start making noise. Letters started coming in every few days, all dressed up in formal language and condescension, demanding a full audit of my parents' financials going back 5 years. They accused me, in increasingly aggressive wording, of elder financial abuse, of manipulating vulnerable adults, of exploiting power of attorney for personal gain. The word fraud got tossed around so casually, you'd think it was a seasoning in a recipe, just sprinkled here and there to add flavor. They wanted everything: bank statements, transfer logs, business filings, even my personal taxes. They wanted to dig until they hit something dirty. What they didn't realize, what Lauren had never once understood, was that I never left fingerprints unless I wanted to. Every transfer I made, every shift of assets, every account consolidation was logged, time-stamped, and notarized. I had Mom and Dad's signatures on documents with video recordings to match. I had emails with their full consent, voice messages where Dad slurred his approval, and even old text messages from Mom thanking me for keeping the chaos under control. They hadn't been confused. They hadn't been misled. They had been tired and scared and too proud to admit they needed me. So I didn't flinch. I pulled out folders, thumb drives, hard copies, digital backups. I had receipts stacked higher than Lauren's debt. I hired a lawyer of my own, a quiet woman named Melanie, with eyes like steel and a memory sharper than a guillotine. She didn't say much in meetings, but when she did speak, people listened like their lives depended on it. She went through every document with surgical precision, highlighting inconsistencies in Lauren's claims, pointing out dates and details her attorney had clearly overlooked. It wasn't just defense, it was a dismantling. The court date was set, and when the morning came, I wore the same suit I'd worn to Dad's funeral. It still smelled like mothballs and unresolved grief. The courtroom was colder than I expected, all marble and echoes, and Lauren sat on the other side in a tailored blazer that looked like it hadn't seen a courtroom before either. She didn't meet my eyes. Maybe because she knew she'd overplayed her hand, or maybe because deep down, even she didn't believe she was entitled to what she was fighting for. When the judge walked in, I knew we weren't dealing with a pushover. She was in her 60s, white hair pulled back so tight it made her look younger, and eyes that had clearly seen more bullshit than most people shovel in a lifetime. She listened. Patiently. She asked sharp questions. She let Lauren's lawyer talk himself into a corner more than once. When Melanie presented the documentation, the judge leaned forward, adjusted her glasses, and nodded slowly like she already knew how this was going to end. After 4 hours, it was clear the case was crumbling. There was no fraud, no manipulation, no abuse. Everything I had done was, by the letter of the law, absolutely above board. The judge dismissed the claim of elder abuse with prejudice, meaning Lauren couldn't bring it up again even if she found new evidence, which she wouldn't. Melanie was already packing up when the judge cleared her throat and asked me to remain a moment longer. I stayed standing as everyone else left the courtroom. The judge looked at me, eyes narrowed, head tilted, and said something I didn't expect and didn't forget. "Mr. Carson," she said, in a voice so flat and controlled it cut deeper than any shouting ever could, "just because something's legal doesn't make it right." That sentence hit harder than anything Lauren had said in years. It stuck to my ribs like glue, echoing louder than the gavel she used to end the hearing. I didn't argue. I didn't nod. I just stood there, letting the words settle over me like dust. That night, I poured a glass of bourbon and sat on the back porch with my thoughts swirling like smoke. I started remembering things I hadn't thought about in years. Dad laughing while trying to fix the sprinkler system, Mom humming in the kitchen with flour on her cheek, the way the three of us used to play cards at the lake house before Lauren's shadow swallowed everything. I had dreams again for the first time in weeks. Dreams where Dad looked at me like he used to, proud but silent, and dreams where Mom's voice came through clear, telling me I'd done the right thing, even if no one else agreed. But sometimes, when I woke up in the dark with sweat on my back and the sheets tangled around my legs, I wasn't sure if those dreams were blessings or curses. The following morning, my phone rang while I was pouring coffee. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway, still half asleep and nursing the hangover of unresolved guilt. A young voice on the other end asked if I was Adam Carson. I said yes, already bracing for some bureaucratic nonsense. "There's been a break-in," the voice said. "At the lake property." My heart sank like a stone in a well. The lake house, our childhood refuge, the one place I hadn't touched yet, hadn't sold, hadn't even walked through in over a year. Someone had broken in. "Is anything missing?" I asked, already knowing the answer didn't matter. The voice paused. "Hard to say. It's kind of a mess." I didn't say anything else. Just hung up, stared into the black swirl of my coffee, and wondered if some ghosts were louder after you thought you'd buried them for good. The drive to the lake house was longer than I remembered, though maybe that's just how time works when you're going back to a place that once meant everything and now means something else entirely. The road was cracked and overgrown in places, like the trees had started reclaiming what we left behind, inch by inch, root by root. I kept the windows down, let the air hit my face like penance, like maybe if I let enough wind push through me I'd forget what I was driving toward. But I already knew. Some places you don't revisit, you just get summoned back, whether you want to be there or not. When I stepped out of the truck and saw the front porch sagging, the broken screen door flapping like it was gasping for breath, I knew this wasn't just a break-in. This was personal. This was Lauren. Beer cans littered the yard like a college tailgate gone sideways, crushed and sun-bleached, some half filled with rain and cigarette butts. One of the front windows was shattered, glass spread like a starburst across the carpet we used to sit on with board games and hot cocoa. Inside, the place was wrecked. Picture frames on the ground, cracked or face down. Mom's old quilt slashed through, its batting spilling out like someone tried to kill it. The smell of stale alcohol and rotting food clung to everything, like even the memories had started to decay and protest. I didn't need to call the cops. What would I say? That my sister vandalized our family's last sacred ground because I beat her at a game she didn't even know she was playing? That justice had a receipt and she didn't like the final balance? No. There was nothing left here worth salvaging. Not the furniture, not the past, not even the damn walls that used to hold our secrets in. I walked upstairs to the bedroom where Dad kept his old answering machine, tucked behind a dresser like a relic from another lifetime. I hadn't touched it in years. It was still plugged in, blinking with one unheard message. I almost didn't press play. Almost walked away and left that little red light blinking forever. But something in me needed to hear whatever it had to say. The recording clicked. The static came first, then his voice, raspy, slower than I remembered, like someone speaking through the fog of pills and half-memories. Hey, Adam. I don't know if I told you this, but you've always been the strong one. You've been holding this damn family together for a long time. I know we haven't said it enough. Don't let that girl ruin you, son. Don't let her bitterness take your peace. And then silence. No goodbye. No apology. Just that, his last words to me, stuck in time, waiting for years on a forgotten machine in a house now destroyed by the very person he warned me about. I sat down on the edge of the bed and played it again. Then again. And again. Until the voice stopped sounding like his and started sounding like something I'd made up in my head, a story I was telling myself to make the wait feel worth it. I sold the house the next week. Didn't tell Lauren. Didn't answer her texts. Let the real estate agent handle everything. Cash sale, no inspection. The buyer planned to knock it down and build some modern vacation spot for weekenders who'd never know about the decades of birthdays, burnt marshmallows, and blowout fights that happened under that roof. Part of me felt like I was erasing something sacred. The other part felt like I was finally closing a door that had been rotting off its hinges for years. A month passed before the final twist arrived. Certified letter. Another trust. Another layer to this family's endless stack of secrets and misplaced intentions. Apparently, Mom and Dad had set up a secondary fund, smaller than the first, but still significant. They'd never told me about it. The trust was meant for future support and security of Lauren Carson. Not even ambiguous. Just straight to her name, locked in and ironclad. She still ended up with something. After everything, I stood in my kitchen, envelope in one hand, glass of whiskey in the other, and laughed, deep and hollow, the kind of laugh that has no joy in it. Just noise. Just a release valve on a pressure tank that had been shaking for too long. Maybe this wasn't revenge. Maybe it wasn't even justice. Maybe it was just to trade my soul for a damn house, my peace of mind for the illusion of victory, my silence for a seat at a table I never truly belonged to. And the worst part? I'm not even sure I'd do it differently. That's the part that keeps me up at night. That's the part one can't shake. You think you want revenge until you finally get it. Then you realize you didn't want to win, you just didn't want to be forgotten. You didn't want to disappear while someone else played victim and collected sympathy like coins in a jar. But once it's done, and the dust settles, and your name is etched on everything you thought you wanted, suddenly, it feels less like victory and more like ash in your mouth. They're both gone now. Lauren's still floating through life, probably telling herself she got screwed out of her inheritance by the brother who never hugged enough, never cried enough, never played the baby role the way she did. She got the trust, though. She'll be fine. Or she'll find a way to lose it all again. That's the cycle, isn't it? And me? I still hear his voice on nights when the house is too quiet. Still see Mom's handwriting on the backs of recipes I can't bring myself to throw away. Still wonder if there's another voicemail somewhere, something that explains it all. But there's not. Just the ones we leave unsaid, the ones buried in the corners of our lives like landmines waiting to go off when we least expect it. Would you have done the same? Or am I the villain here?